Hey, do you have anxiety of turbulence and fear of flying? Well, welcome to Explore Travel TV. My name is David L. Peters, and in this episode, I'm going to talk about your fears of flying and anxieties and some tips and tricks on how to combat those so you can fly to more places in this beautiful world. Coming up next. And welcome back, everybody. And if you're new here and love travel, please hit the subscribe button and the bell notification so you know when I post up new videos. My mission for this show is to entertain, educate, motivate you to a better vacation and awesome life ahead. And that's why I wanted to talk today about travel and fears of traveling and fears of flying, because we have so many beautiful, beautiful places in this whole world to visit, but many people don't do it because they're just afraid to get on a plane. And stay tuned to the end, because I actually interview a friend of mine who has extreme anxiety, but yet she still flies, and she found some things that actually helped her get over these anxieties and deal with it so she can actually fly to places she really wants to go. So don't forget to watch that towards the end of the video.
Nervous?
Yes.
First time?
No, I've been nervous lots of times.
So why are people afraid of flying? Well, it could be getting into a tin can flying at 39,000 feet at 600 miles an hour. That can make you a little bit uneasy. Flying is one of the safest modes of transportation there is. The chances of getting in a plane crash are like 1 in 5 million. Now you have more of a chance of dying in a car crash or riding a horse or a bicycle or getting bit by a mosquito. Your chances are greater of dying that way than you are in a plane. So planes are super, super safe. They go through so much regulations, but there's still a fear of flying. So as far as safety is concerned, you can just put that in your mind that it is the safest mode of transportation there is. So when I ask people what are they actually afraid of while flying, most everybody will say a fear of crashing. The plane actually goes down and crashes. Well, like I said before, that's so unlikely. That's not going to happen. You can kind of cross that off your board, but the fears actually go a little deeper than that. And let's talk about those. Turbulence. Turbulence is when the airplane is flying along and all of a sudden you got the bumps and the jips and you're rocking and rolling and stuff like that. Now that could be very unnerving, especially to someone who has got some anxiety about flying. Now that's kind of a normal, natural part of flying in an airplane. Now I did a lot of research on this, and there's no such thing as air pockets, but there's just different temperatures of air, and it just makes the plane kind of go up and down. And talking with the pilots, they actually do everything they possibly can to avoid the turbulence. Now, because they really don't want to fly in it either, and they want it to be most comfortable for the passengers as possible. So they're going to avoid it, but it does happen. So you need to at least be aware of there's going to be some turbulence. And the best advice I have for that is just to be aware that this is going to happen. Let's put that in the plan. Let's think about it like it's part of the journey to get to where you're going to go. It's like a little roller coaster. You just have to go with it. Be prepared, ready for it, and also always stay buckled up. Most of the accidents and incidents and injuries on planes happen when turbulence happens and people are not buckled in and they're walking around and all that, and then they get injured that way. The plane's not going to drop out of the sky, though it may feel like it as it all of a sudden drops and then comes back up. Again, it is totally safe, but it's going to happen. Now, I think one of the really number one fears of flying is actually claustrophobia. Now, that's a fear of small places, tight places. So you're going onto the airplane and the door closes, and man, your heart starts to race because you are in an enclosed environment that you really can't get out of. You have no control of your environment of where you're at. Now, that is a really real fear. A lot of times it stems from something that's happened in your past. So if you get a chance to, if you can actually think about what it was that made you afraid of that. Were you, as a kid locked into a box or things like that? You survived so far through all of this. Everything you've been through, you survived it just fine. And but when you get in that airplane, you lose that control, and that may affect your emotions that way. Now, I'm not a psychologist or anything like that, But I do have some tips and tricks that may help you deal with these anxieties that you have of flying. So here are some top tips I have to help make your flight a much better experience. When you're booking your vacation, actually call the airlines and talk to somebody. Now, if you let them know that you have anxiety, a lot of times they can actually put you on the special assistance list, which means you can get a chance to pre-board ahead of time before anybody else. Now, that will also give you a little bit more time to get on the plane without a bunch of people crowding you in. You can put your stuff away, you can get in your seat and start relaxing right away without dealing with a lot of other people trying to get into the same place. Get to the airport early. Now, they usually recommend getting there 2 hours ahead of time. I say try to plan at least 3 hours, especially if you have anxiety. That way, if there's any traffic or any problems getting your tickets and checking in your bags, you're through the security lines and you're there and you're ready and relaxed before your flight. Once you actually get onto the airplane, let the flight attendants know, hey, I got a little bit of anxiety about flying. And they'll really take good care of you because they want to make sure that you're comfortable and not freaking out. But they'll also let you possibly talk to the pilots. And then you can ask the pilots, how do you feel about the flight? Is there going to be a lot of weather? Is it going to be really bumpy? How you feel about it? Of course, they want to make you comfortable, and they're not going to fly in anything that's dangerous either for themselves, but it might help you put yourself at ease. Now, one of my favorite things to do is to bring headphones. Now, you can put a nice playlist of your tracks, music tracks that you like, upbeat music, but I like to do more relaxing type of music. I have an app that plays ocean waves and rain and that kind of stuff, and it really puts me in a relaxed mode, and it keeps the outside noises away from your ears. So there's no kids crying or sounds of the plane. It's just my music. Another great thing to bring is blindfolds. That way you can kind of keep out the visual cues that you're actually in an airplane. So you don't see the people, you don't see that you're in this little metal tube. So with the earphones and your music and the blindfolds, that just keeps all those audio and visual cues that you're in a plane away from your head. Now, a lot of people like to bring books, or you can put a movie on your phone or a tablet. Some planes offer movies as well, but if you're in a book and you're turning pages and you can actually get involved, your mind is working, you're reading, it keeps your mind off of the things that you may be afraid of. Another trick that I really like to do is actually think about where I'm going. Like if it's a vacation, I put into my mind, what am I going to do when I get there? What's the weather going to be like? Is it a beach or is it on a cruise? And a lot of times it's good to actually bring a photo of where you're going, and that way you can look at it and just go, this is where I'm heading, this is what's happening. I just have to get there. This is just a short journey. Get through it to get to where you're going. And then for the way home, say if you have a pet at home or a child or something that you really look forward to doing when you get home, have a photo of that or have that in your mind and think about that while you're on the plane. Again, you're just getting through the journey. It's just a transportation. You got to get there somehow. Just get through it. Now, a lot of times you got to go a little step further and become medicated just to get through it. So there are some things that you can do. Now, if you have anxiety medication from your doctor, some people have that anyways because they have anxiety on a normal basis. But if you don't normally have that and you really have this fear, go talk to your doctor. They may have something for you. A couple of good things that are simple and easy and over the counter would be like Benadryl, because that will kind of make you relax. And I do a Dramamine. Now, I personally have a little bit of motion sickness, and so I always carry Dramamine with me, and it does make me a little bit more relaxed. It also helps me with nausea, so if it is a little bit bumpy and I don't get sick that way, it's actually very relaxing. So Dramamine or the Benadryl, it's over the counter, that also may help you. Now, sometimes where you sit on the plane can really help you as well. A lot of the experts say that if you sit at the front of the plane where you can see the flight attendants and the pilots are right there and the exit door as well, it will help relax you a little bit because you can be kind of involved and see where you're going. But the other thing is to sit on an aisle seat. That way, it actually makes you feel like you have more room. So if you have the claustrophobia, you don't want to sit near the window or in the middle seat. I hate those middle seats because you're squished between two people. But anyways, an aisle seat on the end is the best way, and that way you can get up to go to the bathroom. You're not going to feel like you're really stuck there. So those would be some of the best places to sit when you're on a plane. Now this one may sound a little odd, but actually if you breathe through a straw, it helps. So you just get a straw, put it in your mouth and breathe through that. It will actually help you relax. It'll help you concentrate more on your breathing than anything else, and you'll relax and you will feel better. Another thing you can do if your anxiety is really bad is actually get some hypnosis. Some people believe in that, some people don't, but I've been online and I did a lot of research about this, and there's a lot of people that have been kind of cured of their anxiety of flying through hypnosis. They will take you back to why you're afraid and your fears and help eliminate those through your mind, your subconscious, and that kind of thing may really, really help. So if you are feeling that none of these tips will help you at all because there's just no way, maybe try that and see if it'll help. Okay, I'm sorry, I know that was a lot of tips. There's so many more tips and tricks out there. You can go online and search through even YouTube, and you will find dozens and dozens of other tips and tricks. I hope that some of these actually help you to get on a plane and go do an adventure, go someplace other than just staying at home. There's so many great places to go to, but I usually recommend trying someplace short. Maybe try an hour flight. That way you can get on the plane and experience just a very, very short flight, and it's not gonna be very long. It's like you're almost there. When I'm on a short flight, what I think of is once we level up, they're gonna serve drinks and like peanuts and stuff. So I usually get a ginger ale because it helps my tummy and a bag of peanuts. But because it's so short a flight, that once you get that and they come clean up, you're gonna be coming down and ready to land pretty soon. So they're not very long. An hour flight, an hour and a half flight, 2 hour flights, those are really, really not bad. Now I've been on flights that are over 12 hours, and those are long flights, and you really have to have patience and keep yourself occupied on those. But again, for the first time, start off with a small, short flight, and then build yourself up and go from there. And as promised, I did an interview with a friend of mine who has extreme anxiety, and we talked a little bit about her anxiety and what she does to help her get through that. And a lot of those were from my tips and tricks that I have are things that she actually does. So let's talk to my friend Kimberly right now. Okay, now everybody, I'd like to introduce you to my friend Kimberly. Hey, Kimberly.
Hey.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you, David?
Doing well. Thank you for coming on. This episode of my show is about afraid of flying, and you and I have taken some trips before together on an airplane. And when I decided to do this, I figured who better to talk to than Kimberly, because you've had some anxiety and some issues with flying, haven't you?
Oh, yes.
To say the least. Well, give us a brief little story and history of your flight and your anxiety and how that came about for you.
Well, I never used to be afraid to fly. I mean, I used to love to fly, and I even wanted to be a flight attendant at one point. Unfortunately, back in about maybe 1989, I was on a flight to Chicago from California, and we ended up making an emergency landing because somebody lit the back of the plane on fire with smoke. So after that, I felt like I wasn't prepared for that. And the way that the flight attendants handled the situation really put so much fear into me. So from that moment, I have been deathly afraid to fly.
Mm. Wow.
Now, the things that I experience now are more like a claustrophobic feeling. So it's like that fear of, not being in control now.
Okay, so somebody lit the back of the plane on fire. Everybody was okay though, right? It landed fine?
Yeah. Oh yeah, we landed just fine. The pilot did not come on and tell us what we were doing. So we just kind of started circling, doing circle motions in the air. And then the next thing I know, we land, and I was kind of young. And so we landed, and as soon as we landed, they just kind of opened up the doors, and they, had us go down the chute and, kind of, took us to wherever we needed to go, like on these buses, and then drove us into Chicago where we could catch our, another connecting flight.
So you actually have to go down the big yellow inflatable slides
Yes.
out the exit doors, emergency exit doors?
Yes.
Okay, so I guess that could be a little traumatic experience.
The thing that I learned from that, though, is I never used to pay attention to when the flight attendants used to tell you, like, use your seat as a raft or, all that kind of stuff. And, you take that kind of stuff for granted because you think it's never going to happen to you. Well, it did happen to us. And so now I make sure that I pay attention to what they're saying.
The safety warnings at the very beginning.
Yes.
Gotcha. So that caused you to have some anxiety for future flights as you went, but you still went on flights though, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, that's the only way to really get around. I mean, realistically, who wants to drive 5 days in a car when you could just take a plane for 4 or 5 hours and get there? So it never really stopped me. However, it has slowed me down.
Yeah. Now, when we did the couple trips that we did, I think I still have the scars in my arm. With some nails. And folks, seriously though, she had such a bad anxiety where it was hard for her to breathe. Tears come down her eyes. Now she wasn't like ecstatic, like running out the exit door or anything like that. She tried to keep it in control. But you definitely had some major fears and anxiety just getting in there. So why don't we talk to people a little bit about what you did to help you work through those fears to be able to get on a flight and go places?
Well, when I call to book my ticket, I don't do my booking online. I actually talk to somebody live. When I talk to them on the phone, I let them know that I have anxiety, and that is considered a medical condition. So what they do is they mark my ticket as that. Then when I get to the airport, I always make sure I get there a little bit earlier. So that way it gives me plenty of time so I'm not hyperventilating on top, with the rushing on top of being afraid to get on the plane. I do check in and get a pre-board, and I let them know I have a medical condition. They do ask you now if there's a certain seat that you need to sit in, and I do tell them that I need to sit in the front or directly behind the exit row on the aisle seat, because it gives you just a direct view of the entire plane and also of the flight attendants that are in the front of the plane. I sometimes go a little overboard, and if I see the pilot, I tend to walk up to him and ask him, if him and his wife got along that morning and, how he feels about going home that day. And then
you make sure the pilot's not suicidal or something, right?
Exactly.
Take everybody down with, okay.
I get close enough to make sure I smell his breath and, that kind of thing. I mean, that's a little excessive, but that's getting better. I also talk to the flight attendants, and I let them know right away. Another thing I do to backtrack is I take 25 milligrams of Benadryl. My primary care physician said that the Benadryl will actually relax me. So I take a full one about an hour and a half before my flight. And it allows me to it kind of makes me feel like I'm still breathing, because once they close those doors, that's when the anxiety kicks in. I could sit on the plane, people could board it, that doesn't bother me. But the second they close that door, then they start, taxing, that's when I start freaking out. Once I'm in the air, I'm okay. One thing I've kind of learned is when I'm driving in my car, I learn to pay attention to how the road sounds. So like if I hit a pothole, I'm like, oh, that's what turbulence feels like. Or if I'll kind of roll my windows down and, it'll make the car kind of move a little bit, that's turbulence. So I kind of use my daily experiences also, to help me with flying.
Mm-hmm. So your fears are not as much as the plane gonna crash, because that's very unlikely.
Yeah, it's very unlikely. I mean, it does go through your mind, but mostly for me, it's almost like it used to be I was afraid that we were going to crash. And then, of course, when all this MAX 8 stuff started happening with these flights, I started freaking out. But then I have a friend of mine who works on airplanes and another one that's a flight attendant. And, they allowed me to go to the airport and actually take a look at how resilient these planes are. So that's really no longer a fear for me. Now it's more, I'm trusting somebody with my life Well, I don't know. And oh my gosh, am I going to get there? And that's most people with anxiety have that fear.
Yeah. So so you said like most of your fear is more claustrophobic. You're in a confined area without any control. And that's what a lot of people have. That's their fear is there's no control at that point. Once the doors close, you are in somebody else's hands. Versus like if you're driving, you can pull over.
Well, yeah, you can pull over and you could get out and you're on the ground. I mean, you can't go anywhere. And then if my anxiety, I notice, becomes worse, like if we are having turbulence, like, I'm still a little fearful to fly during the spring and the summer times because we get a lot of, storms, especially I live in the Southeast. So, we get a lot of storms back here. So a lot of the fear also comes from, oh my gosh, when this plane starts a rocking, I can't get off this plane. I have to wait till it actually lands. So it's just trusting, and trust is very difficult for somebody like me who has anxiety.
Yeah. Now, have you taken any other kind of medication before? Any like the Xanax or other stuff that are prescribed for anxiety?
Yes, in the past I have. For the past 3 years, I've only done Benadryl. But before that, I did used to take Klonopin, which didn't seem to work as well for me. That just kind of sedated me, but it didn't take the anxiety away. As far as prescription medicine, I would really recommend Xanax, because like maybe a 0.5 milligram of it, just because it does take the edge off. A lot of times when you get on the plane and you let the flight attendant know you have anxiety, they usually offer you a free drink at the beginning of the flight to go with the anxiety pill.
Hey, maybe that's a way to get a free drink, people.
Exactly.
I all of a sudden have anxiety on every plane now.
I think I have a collection of the bottles because I just take them.
Oh my God, that's good. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Now, do you do anything to help distract you while you're flying? Because now a lot of stuff, and we're talking about that in this video today, is there's a lot of distractions sometimes help, like music or reading or movies, things like that. Do you use any of those kind of things to kind of keep your mind occupied on other things versus thinking, oh, we're going to crash, I'm locked in. Do you do anything for that?
Yes, absolutely. Well, for starters, if I sit in the front, I usually strike up a conversation with the flight attendants or the people around me. Sometimes your neighbors aren't as, eager to speak to you because they just kind of want to get to their destination and not have a conversation. So I do talk to the flight attendants a lot. When that doesn't work, I have an actual playlist on my phone. So I have a takeoff song, and then I have a song, like 3 songs that I play, while we're climbing. And then as I'm landing, I have a landing song. And and the thing is I time it out. For example, if I'm taking an 1.5 hour flight, I make sure that my playlist is actually just a little bit longer at 1 hour and 45 minutes. So that way I know, okay, I'm only 3 more songs till we land.
Oh, okay. So you kind of time yourself out.
That's what distracts me. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, that's good. Well, I know you like to talk to people, so that's good.
Yeah.
And we've been on a few flights where you've done some interesting things.
Yeah, right. So I use, and I know what you're talking about. I used to, oh my gosh, I used to do the rosary beads because I swore that the rosary beads were going to save us. I've done some crazy things. I've definitely advanced.
Good. Well, that's good to hear. So if anybody flies with you, they may not have to get nail marks in their arms anymore.
No, I used to make people like my daughter, you, and other people that I've traveled with. I mean, you guys would have to like hold my hand like super tight because I would just be shaking. I also never used to be able to eat or drink on a plane because I was always afraid, what if I choke up here? What am I going to do? Is there a doctor on the plane? These are kind of thoughts that, go through my mind. But now I just don't do those things because I realize that was very irrational fears is what those were. So, I just kind of talk myself through those now.
That's good. And the biggest thing is it's a mental game, really. It's a psychology, mental stuff on what you tell yourself, in there. So if you're telling yourself, yeah, this is, gonna crash, or we're gonna, I'm locked in, I can't move, boom, 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 versus maybe just tell yourself about the location you're going to. You know, like what are you looking forward to, and how quick can you get there? Like your playlist is nice because you can, you know, plan it out so you know, hey, I'm almost there.
Yeah,
We're almost gonna land,
exactly.
and then you get to either enjoy where you're going or you're coming back home. You know?
Exactly.
So,
You know, and that's another thing to add. Like when you had said, think of your location. Another thing that I do is I create a list of some of the things that I want to do, you know, before I go. Because, you know, when you're vacationing, that's usually what you do. However, I leave a couple of details out because when I'm on the plane, it allows me to kind of finalize what my plans are. So that also gets my mind thinking of, instead of, oh my gosh, I'm in this big tin can, 38,000 feet in the air, I'm thinking, well, gosh, you know, on Thursday, I'm going to go hang out at the beach. You know, little things like that. So you just got to kind of trick your mind.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for talking to us, and for the viewers. Hopefully this gives you some little insight of somebody that has anxiety, and some of the tips and tricks that she used to help combat that. And there's always going to be those things going on in your mind, and some people will just never ever fly because of that, period. There are other ways of getting help: psychological help, hypnotherapy help, things like that, or heavily medicated.
Yes.
Get you passed out and put you on a plane, whatever. But, you know, of course, we encourage people to get out there and travel and see the world. It's such a great place. So thank you, Kimberly, so much for coming on the show. And I'll talk to you later. And we're going to continue on.
Well, thanks, David.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, as you've seen, Kimberly got through her anxieties. She still has anxiety, but she gets through them, and she's able to go to places that she wants to go, which is awesome. And I hope that some of the stuff, again, helps you to be able to travel more. My motto is life is short, so live it. There's so many beautiful places out there, so get on a plane, get out there. If any of this stuff helps you, please let me know. And if you have other tips and tricks that you use that I did not cover, leave a comment down below. Give a thumbs up too if you like the video. I do appreciate that. But please leave a comment down below on if you think this stuff is going to help, or if you think it will never help and you're never going to get on a plane. Or again, if you have tips and tricks that help you deal with your anxiety, this might help other people. So let's do that. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.